The Houston Texans have undergone a lot of changes on the offensive end, from firing their offensive coordinator to bringing in brand new offensive linemen and brand new wide receivers. In today's video, we're going to talk about everything the Houston Texans did via trades and the same with the NFL draft, and why I do believe the Houston Texans are going to be a main player in the AFC for many years to come. But we have to go back to CJ's rookie season. The Houston Texans selected CJ in the first round. And since then, he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He had a tremendous rookie season. He helped the Houston Texans have a 10-7 record. And for the first time in a very long time, they went to the NFL playoffs. For the first time since 2019. Not only did they go to the playoffs, they went against the Cleveland Browns and they dominated the Cleveland Browns at home. Unfortunately, they ran to the Baltimore Ravens and they lost. But CJ's rookie year, a rookie head coach, brighter days should be ahead. So last year in the offseason, they went out there, they added in some defensive names to help this defense. And trust me, we will go in depth with the defense as well. But they went in, they added in names on the offensive end, such as Stephon Diggs, and the same with a very good running back in Joe Mixon. There were a lot of reports at the time that the Cincinnati Bengals may cut Joe Mixon, but the Texans say, you know what, we'll bring him over to help out Bobby Slowick. Bobby Slowick was getting head coaching interviews after his first season with CJ. Keep that in mind when I go more in depth about Bobby Slowick in the next couple of minutes. So when you go out there and you bring in Joe Mixon and you bring in Stephon Diggs, those are Super Bowl type of aspirations that the Houston Texans had at the time. But their offensive line was still a major issue. Dating back to CJ's rookie season, he was one of the most pressured and one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the NFL. But the unpredictable play calling by Bobby Slowick at the time and how good CJ was just running outside the pocket and making plays on his own really helped take this team to the next level. And we got to see Nico Collins take that next step forward. No one saw Nico Collins being a true number one wide receiver until CJ came there. Nico Collins was a solid wide receiver. Don't get me wrong, but CJ elevated his play to the next level. And Tank Dell, as a rookie, had a very good rookie season until he hurt his leg against the Denver Broncos. A lot of that was because it was a QB sneak play and Bobby Slowick kept him into the game. So heading into year number 2, Nico Collins, still the true number one wide receiver. They gave a major contract extension for a reason. You bring in Stephon Diggs. He's the number 2 wide receiver, technically a number 1 in his own right. And now you have a very good wide receiver 3 and Tank Dell and Dalton Schultz at the tight end position, who had a very special year in CJ's rookie year. But in year 2, a lot of things were off as soon as the season started. They were more so a defensive-led team than they were as an offensive-led team. And that's fine. You have one of the best defensive head coaches and one of the best defensive minds in DeMeco Ryans. But as the season progressed, the offense did get better. As a matter of fact, it got worse. Nico Collins was one of the best wide receivers in the NFL last season, and before he got injured with the hamstring injury, he was leading the league in receiving yards. But once he went down, the offense took a major step back. And even before he did go down, the way that Stephon Diggs was rarely being used in certain situations was mind-boggling. Bobby Slowick basically phased out Stephon Diggs and the same with Tank Dell to feed Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz. It was one of those situations, they're taking a lot of deep shots down the field, and it put a lot of stress on CJ. Remember, the offensive line was not particularly good CJ's rookie season due to the fact that your tackles missed time and Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard. But even when the offensive line was fully healthy in year 2, you still saw some of the plays just didn't make sense, and CJ was put under a lot of duress. He was the second most sacked quarterback in the NFL next to Caleb Williams, and he was still yet one of the most pressured quarterbacks. And when Nico Collins went down, the offense still didn't look the same. They were solid at times, but they were still missing the mark. With you adding in Stephon Diggs and the same with Joe Mixon, they're supposed to take the next step forward, but they didn't. It seemed like they took 2 steps back. Stephon Diggs ultimately would have to be the number 1 wide receiver for a couple of weeks. Unfortunately for him, he tore his ACL. Now, the same spot that CJ was in his rookie season, you only have one true number 1 wide receiver that can get open in space. And when you run that press man coverage, he struggled due to bad offensive line play, inconsistent run games at times, and the fact that your wide receivers just couldn't get open in crucial situations. But this time was a little bit different. Nico Collins was still out dealing with a hamstring injury. He missed some time. Now Tank Dell is your number 1 wide receiver. Problem was this: Bobby Slowick had no idea how to use Tank Dell in crucial situations. I remember one game in particular against the New York Jets. They got completely dominated by the Jets Thursday Night Football. A lot of that was coaching from Bobby Slowick. It just wasn't good enough. And the fact the offensive line was abysmal. Now you can see D'Amico Ryans. He's shaking his head. He's frustrated. As the season progressed, they were just an average offense in terms of passing. And that was not supposed to be the case. Now you can say, hey, CJ, sophomore slump. It happens. But CJ was making a lot of good plays on his own on film. The Houston Texans would finish off 10-7, the same record they had in CJ's first year in the NFL. The problem was this. As soon as Nico Collins came back, Tank Dell would get injured against the Kansas City Chiefs in the regular season. So you're back to square one. Nico is your only valuable wide receiver. Tank Dell is out for the playoff run, and the same with Stephon Diggs. You're down to Nico Collins, Joe Mixon out of the backfield, and the same with Dalton Schultz. They did win a playoff game at home against the Houston Texans, but it was deja vu. They ran back into the Kansas City Chiefs. They did put up a very good effort, but ultimately they did lose in the second round, which brings us to today in their offseason moves that they made. Laramie Tunsil was a very good tackle for many years with the Texans. Don't get me wrong. But last season, this man had a lot of penalties that pushed the offense back. We also have to talk about that. Because many people in the national media, they're saying, what are the Texans doing? They already have a bad offensive line. They're going to trade their best offensive tackle. And rightfully so. It raised a lot of eyebrows. But if you go back and you look at certain games, Laramie Tunsil was putting them in tough spots. You already have an offensive line that's not particularly good. When your star offensive lineman is not focused, he's jumping off sides, you're pushing your team back by 5 to 10 yards at a time. That's a situation you don't want to be placed into. And it was one game in particular. He got numerous penalties in. And you can just see Bobby Slowick, he's frustrated. The same with CJ. He would dial in as the season progressed, but at that point in time, it was just over with. You did make a playoff run, but it wasn't good enough. They had Super Bowl aspirations. And when I go back and look at the Kansas City Chiefs game in the playoffs, CJ did play well. He's doing the best that he can. But when you put Nico Collins in double coverage and no one else can get open, that's a bad sight. And Dalton Schultz had some crucial drops in year 2. He wasn't the same reliable tight end that he was in year 1. So when I look at the moves that the Houston Texans made by moving on from Laramie Tunsil, acquiring a second-round pick, that was a very good move in my decision. And he was making a lot of money with the Houston Texans. They're trying to rebuild their offensive line and go into a different situation in terms with a better play caller. Say, fire Bobby Slowick. Remember, the same man that was giving head coaching interviews after year 1 with CJ, they're bringing in Nick Cali, a very good offensive mind from the Los Angeles Rams. Now, he's never called offensive plays before, but he was the former pass game coordinator for Sean McVay. And he got to work with the New England Patriots on their offensive staff, and he won 2 Super Bowls with that organization. He's about discipline, running the football, and taking occasional deep shots down the field to help out CJ. And CJ did come out and he said that he thought very highly of Bobby Slowick, but he did not have a lot of control of the offense. He'll be able to audible more plays because at this point in time, he's entering year 3. So he's seen different looks before from teams like the Baltimore Ravens, the Steelers, and the Kansas City Chiefs, some of the best defenses in the NFL. They need CJ to take that next step forward, and hopefully by hiring Nick can help that out. Now, you still have Tank Dell on the roster. Unfortunately, he's going to miss all of this upcoming season dealing with a knee injury. And when I look at him, his rookie season, the fact that he got injured, I really blame Bobby Slowick for that. You run a quarterback sneak against the Denver Broncos. He hurts his leg. Why is he still in the game? So this is back-to-back years. He hasn't been able to finish out the season. And a lot of his game is dictated off of speed and timing. They had to go out there and move on. Maybe one day he could come back to the Houston Texans and he could be a great wide receiver. But right now, they need to add in depth behind Nico, and that's what they did. You made a move to go out there and trade for Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk is a very good wide receiver. He's not a true number 1. He's a solid number 2, really more so of a number 3 wide receiver. And the reason why I say he's more so of a number 3 wide receiver, he will have drops that just pisses you off deep down the field. He was able to catch on with the Jacksonville Jaguars a couple of years ago when he had over 1,000 receiving yards. But he's more so of one of those wide receivers. He has very good speed, especially going deep down the field. And he's an amazing separator against man coverage. That's what they're looking for. Stephon Diggs is one of the best route runners in the NFL. But last season, something was just off in terms of him separating. You now have the ability to separate with Nico Collins and Christian Kirk if he can stay fully healthy. And I'm just going to be real here. Christian Kirk has been able to stay healthy in quite some time. The last 2 years of his career with the Jaguars have been injury riddled to the T. So you went into the second round. Let's not forget the Houston Texans traded out of the first round. And the reason why it's a good point to bring this up, you do accumulate more picks as the NFL draft goes on and for the future, but it's essential to make some of these picks in the first round so you can exercise a fifth-year option in the future. So with the 34th pick, they went with Jaden Higgins, wide receiver out of Iowa State. Imagine Nico Collins, but a faster Nico Collins. That's what Jaden Higgins is. He's 6'4", and he was able to go out there with Iowa State, and he had a great season. 87 catches, 1,183 receiving yards, 9 receiving touchdowns. He was number one wide receiver for Iowa State, and they ran their offense through him for multiple weeks last season. He can come in and he can be a number one wide receiver out the gate. Amazing big body wide receiver. He can be a 50-50 ball wide receiver, and he's very good at separating. And that's the theme here with the Houston Texans. They want people that can go out there and separate on in-breaking cuts and out-breaking cuts so CJ can get the football out as quick as possible. He fits that. So having him and Nico mixed in with Christian Kirk inside the slot, that's a better offense in my opinion right now. And you get a younger player that's on a rookie deal. You don't have to worry about paying him over the next couple of years. And when you look at Jaden Higgins, he was one of the best wide receivers to have coming out of the 2025 NFL draft. With the 79th pick, they went with Jalen Noel, another wide receiver from Iowa State. He's basically Christian Kirk 2.0, but this situation is a little bit different. He can stretch the field. He's a definition of a big play wide receiver. Can play inside the slot, can play on the outside as well. 1,194 receiving yards, 8 receiving touchdowns. This is the thing with Jalen Noel. He's a complete opposite of Jaden Higgins. Jaden Higgins can fight through press coverage. He can find his way against aggressive cornerbacks. Jalen Noel, not so much. Not yet. But we've seen the Houston Texans develop wide receivers like Nico Collins and the same with Tank Dell. I do think on day one, he's going to be able to go out there and beat man coverage a lot more than he did at Iowa State. And when you look at it from this situation, it's not me saying that he can't separate at all against press man coverage. He can, but it's the versatility that you have with him for playing inside the slot and on the outside. I know that they added in Christian Kirk, but I believe as the season progresses and as they move on, your 3 best wide receivers long-term will be Nico Collins because he's still one of the best wide receivers to have. It's going to be Jaden Higgins and the same with Jalen Noel. Now you may ask yourself, where the hell is the offensive line replacements for Laramie Thompson? Where's the offensive line help moving forward? They did select an offensive lineman with the 48th pick. And his name is Ariante Ursery, a very good left tackle / guard coming over from Minnesota. He is known for his athleticism and his ability to go out there and slide his feet in protection. And that's the one thing that the Houston Texans have missed within the last few years. Laramie Thompson, once again, a very good left tackle. Don't get me wrong, but some plays he was getting beat by faster defensive ends. You can say that he is regressing. The thing is, where I say he can go out there and keep up with faster defensive ends than he can start right now. You're looking for versatility on the offensive line, and you did sign Cam Robinson at the left tackle position. Laken Tomlinson at the left guard position. You still have Drew Scruggs as interior offensive lineman. You have Trent Brown, a veteran at the right tackle position, and you have Blake Fisher right now as a backup tackle at the right tackle position. I will say this, a lot of the offensive line parts, they can move over the course of the offseason and especially during training camp. And you still have Titus Howard with this organization. So now you have more depth on your offensive line, and overall, you're getting younger and faster. Hopefully, a brand new offensive coordinator and brand new offensive lineman can help out CJ. I know right now on the surface, losing Laramie Tunsil for some fans, it does suck. But Cam Robinson, he's a solid left tackle. And drafting a player that you drafted with the 48th pick can definitely help you out long term. Adding in more depth and having young players like Blake Fisher can really help this offensive line out in the short term and especially in the long term. When I look at Blake Fisher, I said in a previous video, I wasn't that high on Blake Fisher. He is a young player. And in terms of him playing right now, it's going to take time for certain offensive linemen to develop. But you have Trent Brown, the right tackle position, who is a veteran. You may look at some of these veterans and just say, hey, they're okay at best. Sometimes just being okay at the offensive line position is more than enough. while those young players can develop. But I do believe one day that Blake Fisher could be a very good starting right tackle in the NFL long term. But having veterans like Trent Brown and Cam Robinson gives you more flexibility long term, those younger players, and they can make an immediate impact right now. And that's the one thing with the Houston Texans. You got the wide receivers, you have your offensive line pieces, but let's not forget the running back position. Joe Mixon is getting older. And Joe Mixon was a very good player last season. He had 1,016 rushing yards and 11 rushing touchdowns. He averaged 4.1 yards a carry. The reason why I bring up his numbers like that, he missed time last season due to a hip drop tackle that he basically got injured against the Chicago Bears with. So he missed time last year. They selected a very good running back from USC and Woody Marks with the 116th overall pick. Woody Marks was able to go out there and have 1,133 rushing yards. He can catch the football at the backfield. He's a definition of a big play running back. And unfortunately for me, I'm a big Dameon Pierce fan. Dameon Pierce has not been the same running back since his rookie season. As a matter of fact, they've given him less carries since then. When we look at Dameon Pierce in his rookie year, 939 rushing yards on the season. He averaged 4.3 yards a carry, 4 rushing touchdowns. At the time, he was one of the better power backs that you can have. In year 2, they gave him 145 carries. He only averaged 3 yards a carry, 2 rushing touchdowns, 416 rushing yards. I do want to bring this up. He did get a kick return on special teams. So he does have speed that can make you scratch your head and say, okay, I did not expect for a power back to move like that. And just based off of last season, he only had 40 attempts for 293 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. He did average 7.3 yards a carry, but let's just be real here. If they gave him more volume, he's not averaging 7 yards a carry. Hopefully with a brand new offensive coordinator, they'll give him more carries. But I look at Woody Marks. He's a more explosive player. And I think right now he'll be a better complementary back to Joe Mixon instead of Dameon Pierce. Still give Dameon Pierce his carries. He can still go out there on 3rd and 1, push the pile for 3 to 4 yards. Don't get me wrong. But in terms of him being that backup running back and that explosive playmaker, I think Woody Marks would be that guy long term instead of Dameon Pierce. And Dameon Pierce is entering year 4 of his contract. They're going to move off of him sooner than later. And it's also important to bring this up. DeMeco Ryans did not draft him. He was not the head coach that went out there and brought him in. He was already here when DeMeco Ryans came over, which really sucked to see. It's going to be a place for Dameon Pierce long-term in the NFL. Hopefully it's with the Houston Texans, but right now they have a lot of depth at the running back position. So overall, I like the offense that they have right now. I think the world of CJ. In year 2, he did take a step back, but a lot of it was bad offensive play calling, bad offensive line protection, and they still found a way to win a playoff game against the Los Angeles Chargers, one of the best defenses in the NFL last season. And he was able to go out there and help them win games in the clutch last year when the offensive line protection was just terrible. So now look at CJ. In my opinion, he's still a top quarterback to have. Now, when I look at this defense, they have potential to have one of the best defenses yet again for this upcoming season. You see, last year, their defense was consistent from week to week. I know we could talk about the Baltimore Ravens game and the same with the Chiefs game. On Christmas Day, a lot of it was due to the fact that your offense just wasn't good enough. And it puts extra stress on your defense to go out there. You had a bunch of 3-and-outs, turnovers. Those things happen. And eventually they're going to wear down on your defense. And Derrick Henry has given the Houston Texans a lot of problems dating back to his time with the Tennessee Titans. So I don't look at those games and say, hey, this defense needs a complete overhaul. That's not the case. The defensive system that DeMeco Ryans has brought in has helped players develop, like Will Anderson, who had a tremendous rookie season next to CJ and had a tremendous sophomore year. And the same with Derek Stingley Jr. Derek Stingley Jr. playing with Lovie Smith and that Tampa 2 system wasn't the best. DeMeco Ryans comes over. He's already one of the best cornerbacks that you can have in year 1 with DeMeco. But speaking of this defense and the entire defense as a whole, they had one of the best pass rushing duos in the NFL last year. Will Anderson had a high pressure rate his rookie season, but the sack numbers weren't there consistently. He had 11 sacks last season, 1 forced fumble, one of the highest pressure rates in the NFL. Danielle Hunter, 12 sacks, 1 forced fumble. Remember earlier in the video when I said they made a lot of moves on the offensive end to help out CJ in terms of bringing in Joe Mixon and the same with Stephon Diggs? They made so many moves to this defense as well by bringing in players like Azeez Al-Shaair, bringing in Danielle Hunter. They lost Jonathan Grenard. He went to the Minnesota Vikings. And he's still a solid defensive end to have. They bring in Daniil Hunter. He came over from the Minnesota Vikings. It's one of those situations where players switch, but no one made a trade. And you still have Danico Autry, who can give you very good production. And he is 34 years old. So he's getting older, but he's still a veteran that you can have around. And he's very good at stopping the run and getting to the quarterback on a consistent basis. But you have Azeez Al-Shaair, Henry at the linebacker position mixed in with Christian Harris. Your entire front seven is ferocious. They're good at stopping the run, getting to the quarterback on a consistent basis, and your secondary is one of the best secondaries that you can have. The Houston Texans had a top rushing defense and a top passing defense last season as well, and they were dealing with a lot of injuries. When I look at their secondary, Derek Stingley Jr., like I mentioned before, is one of the best cornerbacks that you can have in press man coverage. They were looking for a number 2 cornerback. When you go back to D'Amico Ryan's first year, besides Derek Stingley Jr., it was a lot of inconsistent play. Well, Kamari Lassiter, you drafted him. Very good player. 3 interceptions last season, 10 pass deflections. He's a true number 2 cornerback. And you have Jalen Petrie holding things down at the nickel position. 44 solo tackles, 1 forced fumble, 1 interception, 8 pass deflections. They also made a trade to bring in a very good playmaking safety in C.J. Gardner-Johnson. He had 6 interceptions last season, 12 pass deflections. The one thing that I've noticed so far with D'Amico Ryans, he loves to have a lot of playmakers on the back end of his defense, and rightfully so. He wants players that can go back there and take the football away and put the football back into the hands of CJ. And when I look at this division, you have a lot of young quarterbacks. Cam Ward will start with the Tennessee Titans. We'll see if he struggles or not with that organization. The upside is high. Trevor Lawrence is still relatively young in his career with the Jacksonville Jaguars. You have to go out there and be able to pressure those quarterbacks and give them different looks on the back end, whether it's zone coverage and also mix in some man coverage. And that's the one thing D'Amico Ryans has done a great job of over the last 2 years with the Houston Texans, stopping the run and being physical as hell on the back end and confusing young and veteran quarterbacks. Let's not get it twisted. Patrick Mahomes did have good games against the Houston Texans. But some times out there with the Texans defense, they were giving him a lot of problems, especially in the second half of that playoff game. If it wasn't for a couple of calls that were very questionable, the Houston Texans would have possibly went out there and made a better statement on the defensive end. And that's an entirely different tangent, and that's an entirely different complaint for another video. But I will say this. The amount of times I see Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes toy with defenders, they slide late, they run out of bounds late, and the Houston Texans have to pay for the sins of that is ridiculous. And it's not me trying to make excuses and say, hey, the Houston Texans would have won the game if it wasn't for the flags. But at the same time, Patrick Mahomes is running around. He's sliding down. And if you're a Houston Texans fan, you know the play that I'm talking about here. The man slid late. The players, they did not hit him head to head. Instead, they hit each other and they called a flag on the Texans. Little plays like that hurt defensive players, and it hurts defensive play overall. So the fact they were able to have a top defense last season, they were able to stay aggressive, says a lot about the coaching of D'Amico Ryans. And the same with Lamar Jackson. He'll slip out of bounds. They push him out of bounds. They'll throw a flag. All I'm saying is this. A lot of those plays shouldn't win against the Houston Texans, and I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm neutral when the Houston Texans go against any other team in the NFL. But let the boys go out there and play aggressive defense. And I know one play in particular, Azeez Al-Shaair, did get carried away against Trevor Lawrence. He was sliding. He didn't pull up. He hit him. They kicked him out the game, and he was suspended. Plays like that are completely different. But when you have certain situations where the player is sliding late and they know what they're doing, they're toying with defensive players, we have to get that out of the game. But back to the defense with the Houston Texans, adding in CJ Gardner-Johnson is a very good move. Due to the fact that last season, Kalen Bullock had 5 interceptions. He would have easily had 8 interceptions if he did not drop 3 potential passes. And he had 11 pass deflections. So now your entire defense is stacked, and you still have Jimmy Ward now as a backup safety mixed in with Ronald Darby, who's a very good veteran piece to have, especially as a veteran player. And they're not done with defense. Due to the fact in the NFL draft, you did draft a very good cornerback out of USC and Jalen Smith. He's a definition of a player that's going to develop long term and can give you very good snaps right now. A very good press man corner mixed in with some zone. And let's not forget, Kalen Bullock, he also came over from USC, their former college teammates. And they have a close connection off the field. So expect for him to go out there and have a strong training camp overall. I love what the Houston Texans did. You revamped your offensive line with older talent mixed in with some new players, and it comes down to the offensive play calling of Nick. It's his first year in the NFL calling offensive plays, but I have a lot of faith in him. It really comes down to this: their offensive line play, and can CJ take that next step? CJ's already a very good quarterback, but can he become a certified number 5 quarterback in the NFL in terms of being a top 5 player? If that's the case, the Houston Texans are going to be a Super Bowl contender for many years to come. But it really comes down to the play caller and the offensive line protection. You have brand new wide receivers. You revamp that room all the way around. Let's just say Nico Collins does miss time, and the same with Christian Kirk. Let's knock on wood. You have Jalen Noel, and the same with Jaden Higgins, and you have a brand new offensive lineman from Minnesota that can play the guard and tackle position. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you feel about the Houston Texans, and will they be a major force to be reckoned with in the future? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, I want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless. Peace.